My love, forgive me for not sending my first letter sooner. I had intended to write it on the trip here, but I couldn't have guessed how entrancing this new land would be. I've scarcely been able to tear my gaze away from the scenery long enough to eat, let alone to pen this letter. Which isn't to say, of course, that I find any of it more breathtaking than you. You are, and always will be, the most spectacular and radiant thing I have ever laid eyes upon. I know it embarrasses you when I say such things, but I find it an injustice that you don't seem to understand just how marvelous you are. So I consider it my solemn duty to remind you of your beauty and charm whenever the chance arises. Indeed, part of what makes this place so transfixing are the things about it that remind me of you. My research has taken me away from you, but in every rosy sunset, glittering star, and enrapturing vista, I see a glimmer of what drew me to you in the first place. For that precise reason, I would ask something of you as you read this letter. I intend to describe what I've seen in vivid detail, and I would like you to do your utmost to picture what I describe. I hope that if you do, you'll be able to appreciate the beauty of it all the way I can. To begin with, the realm of Niagum works on entirely different principles from the one we call home. Much like the way you stand out from everyone else in your own extraordinary way, it seems to take on its own sort of pride in being outlandish to those not familiar with it. If you were to look outside your window right now, you would see an expanse of land before you and an endless sky above. But not so in Niagum. Here, land soars overhead just as it creeps underfoot. If you look upwards, you'll see a roof, as though we are in some gargantuan cavern. All manner of alien life clings to the top, far enough above our heads that one requires a spyglass to see with any clarity. Mountainous pillars rise from floor to ceiling on occasion, simply coated in flora, and are perhaps the only thing holding up the canopy. One might suppose this means we travel in darkness, but no. Just as you shine with an inner light, Niagum possesses its own luminous within this cavernous landscape. Its mechanics baffle the mind. At all times, the landscape both above and below seems to eventually end in the far distance, with blue sky, clouds, and a sun with a gentle yet pervasive light, seemingly a week's journey away, giving way to stars and 3 moons at night. However, during the 3 weeks I've traveled, I have drawn no closer to this illusory edge, and upon traveling the perceived distance, I always find that there's more land beyond what I could see. Nobody has been able to explain this phenomenon to me, or clarify whether the sky I see ahead even really exists. The life here I find similarly baffling, though it holds the same entrancing beauty I see whenever I gaze into your eyes. I never would have thought that plant life could come in such an array of colors, though a speckling of red is nearly universal on top of whatever other hues are present. The shade is precisely the same your cheeks take on whenever I kiss you, my love. As the sun is always found in the same direction, which the locals simply identify as sunward rather than east or north or so on, the foliage all points that way, as though the leaves were forming faces pointed to it, whether they grow from below or hanging from above. It makes navigation simple, but there is something unnerving about the intensity with which they stare at the source of life. I understand now why you sometimes shy away from me when I gaze intently into your loving eyes. The fauna are diverse and come in every form imaginable, but an interesting trend is common among them. Flight seems to be a beloved pastime among most of them, and the space between the floor and ceiling is constantly filled with flyers and gliders of every shape and size. The way they split their time between clinging to any and every surface, and then taking off to soar through the air, seems to mimic my conflicted desires to constantly hold you close to me where you'll be safe, and then set you loose and watch you rise towards your lofty ambitions. Of particular note, there is an elegant creature that combines the elegance of a swan and the demure grace of a deer, with radiant chestnut fur that blends into features, spectacularly curled antlers, and the sweetest eyes and snout that I've ever seen on an animal. If I were ever to draw you in a form other than your natural one, which I love so dearly, I would choose this one. The journey has been nothing short of spectacular. It is only now that we have reached our destination that I find myself able to write to you. The city of the Niagumites is even more stunning than the Niagum forests, but I will have ample opportunity to explore it during our stay. The city is built around one of the realm's largest pillars. The city is carved into it in some places, and in others is built from wood secured into the sides with stakes and ropes. It even extends into the ceiling, with hanging buildings that gently sway as I watch them. I haven't gathered up the courage to visit these lofty heights yet, or even the wooden platforms on the pillar's sides, and I am uncertain whether I ever will. And yet, the Neogamites assure me that they have never had a building fall. Their creativity and skilled engineering seems to handily meet the daunting task of keeping such a precarious city safe and secure. I can't help but think that you would thrive in such a place, where your clever mind would find kindred spirits with a similar knack for unconventional thinking. Though, unfortunately, the Neogamites aren't the friendliest of beings. They are undeniably beautiful to the last of them, with long, graceful necks, 6 slender limbs, and feathered wings on their backs, almost like angels, if angels had the general profile of a panther. And yet, their beauty clashes with their gruff behavior and combative attitude. It seems strange to me that they never turned away a visitor from my world, despite the fact that they seem to consider us a nuisance. We've yet to determine whether it's actually due to some cultural law of hospitality to travelers, or perhaps they're not actually as irritated by our presence as they seem. Their faces bear no trace of human features or expressions, and the intricacies of their language have yet to be fully understood, so perhaps we simply misjudge them. I can't help but have my mind drawn to our first meeting, my love, where I similarly misjudged you. You seemed intent on avoiding eye contact with me at all costs during the entire carriage ride we had been forced to share, and I believed you to hold some sort of prejudice against me. If only I'd understood back then that you had spent the entire time planning out how to best start a conversation with me, I could have saved you the trouble and initiated it myself. I often wonder what we might have spoken about as strangers with nothing but time on our hands. Our subsequent interactions were often brief and rushed, and by the time we had a chance at any conversation of length, we'd already become well acquainted through our shared struggles. But moving on from the past back to the present, or I suppose the future, I must confess that all this beauty feels tainted to me. I wish I was here simply to observe the colorful airborne life around me, or to forge a connection between our people and the Neogamites. But the subject of my research, and the reason that I had to leave you for this extended trip, is unfortunately neither beautiful nor pleasant. I think perhaps that the reason I am so focused on my surroundings is because I don't wish to think of what's to come. I would ask you to keep me in your thoughts, and perhaps include me in your nightly prayers to the moon. I don't share your faith, but I would gladly accept aid from any source right now. In 10 days' time, I will set out for the true purpose of my visit. If the Neogamites knew what I intended to do, they would surely throw me from the hanging towers. But they'll never know. My love, I eagerly await your response. I am grateful for the speed with which our messenger birds can fly, because I dearly need your comfort. I hope I am able to hear from you soon. I am ever yours, and you are ever the love of my life. May the moon turn away from our weakness, and gaze instead upon our strengths. Until we see each other again, my love.